You prefer quiet. You choose solitude over chaos. You keep to yourself, mind your business, and carefully avoid the drama. Yet somehow, narcissists find you. Toxic people circle you like vultures. Energy vampires drain you dry. This is the loner's paradox. And if you are living it right now, you are not imagining things. Carl Jung discovered why this happens. It is not bad luck. It is not coincidence. It is not your fault. Your silence sends a specific psychological signal to the unconscious minds of toxic people, and that signal makes you their perfect target. Today, I am going to show you exactly why loners attract the most dangerous personalities and what Jung learned about protecting yourself from this invisible trap. Jung called loners the blank canvas. You are quiet, you listen more than you speak, you observe instead of perform. To most people, this seems like wisdom. But to a toxic person, to a narcissist, your silence looks like an empty screen, a blank wall where they can project anything they want. Jung spent decades studying what he called shadow projection. Every human being has a shadow, the dark parts of themselves they refuse to see, the cruelty they deny, the selfishness they hide, the manipulation they will not admit. These shadow traits do not disappear just because someone refuses to look at them. They need somewhere to go. They need someone to carry them. Because you say little, because you reveal nothing, the toxic person projects their entire shadow onto you with absolute conviction. You become the screen for their darkness. They see their own evil in you, and they believe it completely. They accuse you of being cold when they are cold. They call you manipulative when they manipulate. They say you are selfish when their selfishness defines them. Your silence does not protect you. It makes you the perfect target for their unconscious poison. Think about this for a moment. When you interact with most people, they are reading your facial expressions, your tone, your body language. But with loners, there is less to read. You give minimal signals. You do not overshare. You do not perform emotions for social approval. This absence of performance creates what Jung called a psychic vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum. The toxic person's unconscious mind rushes in to fill that empty space with their own content. They are not seeing you at all. They are seeing a movie screen, and they are projecting their own psychological film onto it. This is why arguing with a toxic person never works. You are trying to defend against accusations that have nothing to do with your actual behavior. You are trying to correct a perception that was never based on observation. It was based on projection. The toxic person has already decided who you are, and that decision was made entirely from their own unconscious material. No amount of evidence, explanation, or demonstration of your true character will change their mind. Because they are not perceiving you, they are perceiving themselves through you. But there is something even more dangerous about why toxic people hunt loners. You are not just a blank canvas, you are a witness. Loners are observers by nature. You see things others miss. You notice the micro-expressions, the contradictions, the lies hiding behind polite smiles. Jung studied what he called differentiated perception in his work with introverted intuitives. These are people whose brains process reality at a deeper level than most. You do not just hear words, you feel the intention behind them. You do not just see actions, you sense the patterns beneath them. Toxic people feel seen by your silence. They know, on some unconscious level, that you are reading them. This terrifies them. Their entire survival depends on maintaining their false mask, their carefully constructed image, but your quiet observation threatens that mask. You make them feel exposed without saying a single word, so they attack. They try to control you, gaslight you, isolate you. They need to destroy your perception before you destroy their illusion. Your ability to see the truth makes you dangerous to people who live in lies. Let me give you a concrete example of how this works. A narcissist walks into a room full of people. Most people see the charm, the confidence, the charisma. They fall for the performance. But you, sitting quietly in the corner, you see something else. You see the calculation behind every smile. You notice how they shift their personality based on who they are talking to. You feel the coldness beneath the warmth. You sense the neediness hiding under the bravado. And here is what makes this dangerous. The narcissist can sense that you see them. They do not know how you know. They just know that your energy feels different from everyone else's. You are not falling for the act, and that makes you a threat that must be neutralized. This is why toxic people often fixate on loners. They cannot move forward comfortably knowing that someone in the room sees through them. They need everyone to buy the illusion. Your clarity breaks their spell, and they cannot tolerate that. So they will try to discredit you before you can expose them. They will paint you as the problem, the negative one, the troublemaker. Not because you have done anything wrong, but because your mere presence threatens their false reality. Here is where it gets even darker. Toxic people mistake your introversion for weakness. They see someone who avoids conflict. Empaths aren't broken, they're alchemists in progress. The alchemist's path gives you drills, Jung-based boundaries, and 3 exclusive chapter videos to turn overwhelm into clarity. By Surreal Mind, 236-page downloadable ebook, in stock. Begin now at thesurrealmind.com. Who stays quiet, who keeps to themselves. They think you have no allies, no defenses, no strength. They assume you will be easy to manipulate, easy to control, easy to break. This is the perfect victim fallacy, and Jung discovered something shocking about it. The loner is not the weak target the toxic person believes. You possess what Jung called a hidden genius, a powerful internal world that most people never see. This hidden genius is not about intelligence or talent. It is about psychological sophistication. While others are busy performing for social approval, you have been observing, analyzing, learning. You have spent years watching human behavior patterns. You understand manipulation because you have studied it in real time. You recognize emotional tactics because you have cataloged every single one. The toxic person thinks they are dealing with an easy mark. What they are actually dealing with is someone who has been taking notes on their playbook without them knowing. Your silence is not emptiness, it is depth. Your solitude is not loneliness, it is self-sufficiency. Your avoidance of drama is not fear, it is wisdom. The toxic person thinks they are hunting prey, but Jung found they are actually walking into a trap. Because the loner who understands what is happening becomes psychologically untouchable. The toxic person has chosen the wrong target, and by the time they realize it, the loner has already seen through every manipulation, every lie, every game. But toxic people are not just attracted to your silence or your perception. They are drawn to your energy. Jung understood what modern psychology now calls energy vampires. These are people who cannot generate their own emotional fuel. They need constant reaction, validation, attention, drama. They feed on the emotional responses of others like parasites. You, as a loner, hold your energy in. You do not waste it on pointless arguments or social performances. You conserve it, protect it, keep it close. To a toxic person, this unspent energy looks like a feast. They are starving, and you are full. They are empty, and you are whole. They cannot stand it. So they try to break you open just to get a reaction, any reaction. They provoke you, insult you, create chaos around you. Not because they hate you, but because they need your energy. They need to crack your calm exterior and force you to spill your emotional reserves so they can feed. Your peace is unbearable to someone who lives in constant internal chaos. Think about how this plays out in real life. You are at work, focused on your tasks, minding your own business. The toxic coworker starts making comments, little digs, subtle provocations. They are fishing for a reaction. Most people do not notice what is happening, but you do. You feel the energy shift. You sense the intention behind the words. And if you react, if you show frustration or anger or hurt, they light up. They got what they came for. Your emotional response just fed them. They will leave that interaction feeling energized while you feel drained. This dynamic explains why toxic people become obsessed with loners who refuse to engage. You are like a locked vault full of treasure, and they cannot stand not being able to break in. Every time you stay calm when they try to provoke you, every time you refuse to defend yourself against their accusations, every time you simply observe without reacting, you are denying them the energy they desperately need. And this drives them absolutely crazy. They will escalate, push harder, recruit. Others do whatever it takes to finally crack your composure and get that emotional reaction they crave. The more you refuse to react, the more obsessed they become. Jung documented this pattern across hundreds of cases. The loner who stays centered drives the toxic person insane. They escalate. They push harder. They recruit others to attack you. Because if they cannot drain you directly, they will create a mob to do it for them. This is what Jung called collective possession, the psychological phenomenon where an entire group becomes infected by one person's projection. The toxic person convinces others to see you the way they see them, and suddenly you are being attacked by people who do not even know why they are attacking you. What makes collective possession so dangerous is how quickly it spreads. The toxic person tells one person their distorted version of you. That person tells another. Soon, an entire social system has adopted a false narrative about who you are. You walk into a room and feel the shift. People who once smiled now look away. Conversations stop when you approach. You are being judged for crimes you never committed, based on evidence that never existed. And the worst part is that most of these people are not malicious. They are simply unconscious participants in someone else's projection field. This brings us to the most insidious part of the cycle. The toxic person does not just attack you and move on. They try to isolate you further. They use gaslighting to make you doubt your own perceptions. They tell you that you are too sensitive, too negative, too paranoid. They rewrite history so that your memories feel wrong. They turn others against you so that you have no one to validate your reality. Their goal is to make you completely dependent on them for your sense of truth. If they can isolate you enough, if they can make you believe that you are the problem, then they own you. Jung saw this pattern destroy people. Loners who did not understand what was happening would internalize the toxic person's projections. They would start to believe they really were cold, selfish, manipulative, broken. They would accept the poison and let it define them. This is the danger Jung warned about. The moment you believe the projection, the moment you accept their version of reality, you lose yourself. You become what they say you are, not because it is true, but because you stop trusting your own perception. But here is where everything changes. Jung discovered that there is a moment, a clarity event, where the loner finally sees what is happening. You realize that the toxic person is not describing you. They are describing themselves. Every accusation is a confession. Every criticism is a reflection. The moment you understand that you are a mirror, not a villain, everything shifts. You stop absorbing their poison. You stop defending yourself against lies. You stop trying to convince them of your goodness, because you finally understand that none of this was ever about you. This moment of clarity is transformative because it breaks the spell of self-doubt. For months, maybe years, you have been questioning yourself. Maybe they are right. Maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe I am the problem. Maybe I am imagining things. The gaslighting has worked. You have started to believe their version of reality, but then something happens. Maybe they go too far. Maybe you catch them in an obvious lie. Maybe you see them do to someone else exactly what they accused you of doing. And suddenly, the fog lifts. You see the pattern clearly. You understand that their accusations were never based on your behavior. They were based on their own shadow content that they could not face in themselves. Once you have this clarity, you cannot unsee it. You start noticing all the ways they projected onto you, how they called you controlling when they were the ones demanding you change, how they said you were dramatic when they created drama constantly, how they accused you of lying when their whole life was a performance. Every accusation becomes transparent. You see right through it to the truth underneath, and this awareness becomes your shield. You are no longer vulnerable to their manipulation because you understand the mechanism behind it. This clarity is the beginning of what Jung called integration. You are not rejecting your shadow or denying your flaws. You are simply refusing to carry someone else's darkness for them. You are choosing to see yourself clearly instead of seeing yourself through the distorted lens of a toxic projection. This is the most powerful psychological shift a loner can make. You go from being an unconscious target to a conscious observer. You go from absorbing poison to deflecting it effortlessly. But integration is not a one-time event. It is a continuous practice. Every day, you must choose to trust your perception over their distortion. Every interaction, you must remember that their accusations reveal them, not you. Every moment of doubt, you must return to your center and ask what is actually true versus what they are trying to make you believe. This conscious awareness becomes your armor. It protects you from gaslighting because you know your own reality. It shields you from manipulation because you recognize the tactics. It defends you from isolation because you understand that their rejection says everything about their unconsciousness and nothing about your worth. The solution is not to stop being a loner. The solution is to become an integrated loner. You keep your solitude, your depth, your observation skills, but you add conscious awareness as a shield. You understand the game being played, so you stop participating in it. When a toxic person tries to project their shadow onto you, you recognize it instantly. You do not argue. You do not defend. You simply observe and withdraw. You become what Jung called the unmoved mover. This is where Jung's work intersects with ancient wisdom. The concept of the grey rock method, where you become so boring and unresponsive that the toxic person loses interest, is rooted in this principle. You do not give them energy. You do not give them reaction. You do not give them the satisfaction of seeing you upset, angry, or hurt. You become psychologically invisible to them, and without your energy to feed on, they move on. But here is the key that most people miss. You are not becoming cold or closed off. You are not shutting down your emotions or your humanity. You are simply choosing where your energy goes. You trust your gut over their words. When someone tells you that you are the problem, but your internal experience says otherwise, you trust yourself. When someone accuses you of motives you do not have, you do not waste time defending. Defense signals weakness. Explanation signals doubt. Silence signals strength. Here is how this looks in practice. The toxic person makes an accusation. You are so selfish. You only think about yourself. The old you would have immediately defended. No, I am not. Look at all these things I did for you. But the integrated loner does not take the bait. You might simply say, okay, or you might say nothing at all. You do not defend because you do not need to. You know who you are. Their distorted perception is their problem, not yours. The toxic person will usually escalate at this point. They will try harder to get a reaction. They might bring up the past or create some crisis that demands your emotional response. But the integrated loner sees all of this clearly. You recognize the patterns. You understand the game. And you simply do not play. You maintain your center. You protect your peace. You observe without absorbing. Jung learned this from studying power dynamics throughout history. The person who defends themselves has already accepted the premise of the accusation. The person who explains themselves has already admitted uncertainty, but the person who simply observes the accusation without reacting has maintained their power. This is not arrogance. This is clarity. You know who you are, so you do not need others to validate it. Your solitude is not a curse. It is a superpower. Jung believed that loners, when integrated, become some of the most psychologically powerful people in existence. You have depth that shallow people cannot touch. You have perception that manipulators cannot hide from. You have inner strength that does not depend on validation from others. This is the final piece of Jung's discovery. Once you integrate your awareness, once you understand why toxic people were drawn to you, you become immune to their tactics. They can still try. They can still project. They can still attempt to gaslight or isolate you. But none of it works anymore. You see it coming before they even finish the sentence. You recognize the pattern before they complete the cycle. And you remove yourself from their game without drama, without explanation, without giving them the reaction they desperately need. Jung documented case after case of loners who made this shift successfully. They did not become harsh or bitter. They simply became selective about where they invested their energy wisely. They built boundaries that protected their peace without apology. They stopped explaining themselves to people who were not interested in understanding. The toxic people in their lives either left or transformed. When you stop playing the role they assigned you, when you stop being the blank canvas for their projections, they have two choices. They can face their own shadow and grow, or they can find a new target. Most choose the latter. And that is not your problem anymore. This is what Jung meant when he said that individuation requires you to stand alone, not because you hate people, but because most people are still unconscious. They are still projecting, still avoiding their own shadows. As a loner, you have already chosen depth over distraction. You have already chosen truth over comfort. The loner who understands this walks through life differently. You are not looking for validation from people who cannot see you clearly. You are not trying to prove your worth to people who need you to be worthless. You are simply being, observing, and protecting your energy with fierce awareness. Jung spent his career studying shadow, projection, and individuation. His work with loners revealed something essential. The loner who integrates their awareness does not just protect themselves. They become a mirror for others, not in the way that invites projection, but in the way that invites growth. Your solitude is not the problem. Your silence is not the weakness. Your observation is not the flaw. These are your greatest strengths, and toxic people fear them. They hunt you because they sense your power. But once you understand the game, once you see the pattern, you are no longer prey. So if you have been wondering why you keep attracting toxic people into your life, now you know the truth. It is not you. It is the signal your depth sends to people who live on the surface every day. It is the threat your perception poses to people who hide behind masks. You are not broken. You are a true loner in a world that fears depth. In The Alchemist's Path, perception training for empaths, you'll turn overwhelm into wisdom with practical drills, Jung-inspired boundaries, and step-by-step perception training. This guide includes 3 exclusive chapter videos to deepen each lesson. Written by Surreal Mind, 236 pages, beautifully designed 8.5 by 11 downloadable ebook, in stock now. Start your training today. Feel deeply while thinking clearly. Get The Alchemist's Path at thesurrealmind.com.